There's a few things that you need to know about fat loss, okay? And especially when it refers to these fitness trackers, okay? So number one, just because you're burning more calories doesn't necessarily mean that you're burning more fat, okay? It's super important you understand that calories burned doesn't always equal to fat loss. Now it could, and it could be a great indicator, and you're going to see how we're going to use it, but it doesn't necessarily always equal to fat loss, okay? Another thing is miles. Like maybe you see how many miles you run or how many miles you walked. That doesn't necessarily mean it's fat loss, okay? So you don't want to just say, oh, I did 8 miles and I'm burning fat. That's not true at all, okay? That shouldn't be the expectation, okay? More steps doesn't necessarily mean more fat loss, okay? Staying in your target heart rate training zone doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose fat, okay? And we're going to break that, what target heart rate actually means here in just a second, okay? Now, in order to really understand how you're going to lose fat, you first must understand how your body actually uses energy. Okay, so I know I've explained this a gazillion times to my clients and you're probably tired of hearing it, but let me go ahead and tell you how your body uses energy. Okay, now when you're in a cardiovascular activity, okay, the first 20 minutes of that activity, let's say you're just going to go run. Okay, you're going to run, let's just call it for 80 minutes, okay? And you're just going to run at a steady pace for 80 minutes. The way that your body actually uses energy is the first 20 minutes of that activity, your body is using primarily carbs as energy, okay? That's all it's using. It's just trying to deplete your carbs. And the reason being is that carbs are really easy to break down. And because they're so easy to break down because of the molecular structure, your body will break them down and use those for energy first because they're easy to do, okay? Now, after about 20 minutes, your body will transition over to start using fat primarily as energy, okay, which is what we all want, right? We all want to start losing fat. And so we want to start using fat primarily as energy, okay? And then from 60 minutes on, so again, from 20 to 60 minutes, your body will use primarily as fat as energy. And then from 60 minutes on, your body will start to use protein as its main source of energy, which is what you don't want because your protein sources are in your muscles. And so that's when your body will start eating away at your muscle. Okay. That's why when you go look at these really elite marathon runners, you'll notice that these guys don't have a ton of muscle on them. Okay. I'm talking about the elite ones. I'm not talking about the ones that take 6 hours to run. Okay. If you're running a marathon in 3.5 hours or less, a full marathon, 26.2 miles, chances are you're probably going to qualify for what I'm talking about. You're probably going to eat away at your muscle. You're going to have low amounts of muscle. You'll be lean, but you'll have low amounts of muscle and it'll be really hard for you to grow your muscle. So if you look at these elite marathon runners, you'll notice they all have one thing in common. They're all really, really skinny. Now they're lean. You can see musculature because they have to have some muscle, but because they're running for over 60 minutes, they're using their muscle. A lot of their muscles are being eaten away as they're doing their cardio. Okay. So let's back it up. So the first 20 minutes of a cardio activity, your body is primarily using carbs. From 20 to 60 minutes, your body starts to use fat. And then from 60 minutes on, your body will start to eat away at your muscle, okay? So that is given that you are training within your target heart training zone. If you want to burn fat, you need to train within your target heart training zone, okay? So your target heart training zone, now I'm going to a different thing. So in order for you to really capitalize on that 20 to 60 minute mark, okay, or that time period where you're losing fat, you want to make sure that you're within 55 to 75% of your max heart rate. Now that's just a predicted, or that's just the idea of where it needs to be. And you're going to see how we're going to change this up a little bit. Okay. So if you don't know how to calculate your max heart rate, there's a very, very, very simple formula that you can use to calculate your max heart rate. And we're going to go over that. Okay. So truthfully, in order for you to capitalize on the fat, using the fat primarily as energy, you need to be, first of all, you need to be able to work, from at least for 30 minutes, right? So you can burn at least 10 minutes of fat. So you need to be at that time And then number two, you need to make sure that you're within 55 to 75% of your max heart rate. Okay. If you stay within 55 to 75% of your max heart rate and you can go, 20 plus 20, 60 minutes or so, then you will capitalize on using your fat primarily as energy. Okay. Now, the mistake that I see a lot of people make is they will actually do interval training, for example, and they'll do interval training for an entire hour. Okay. If you've ever tested your heart rate whenever you're doing interval training, you're going to be way out of your fat burning zone. Okay. So your fat burning zone only qualifies whenever you're doing endurance type cardio. Okay. That's the only time it qualifies. Okay. So if you're doing interval training for a full hour, which means that you're at 85% or above of your max heart rate, you're not going to be in your fat loss zone and you're not going to be burning fat. You're going to be burning carbs. And then when you can't burn carbs anymore, your body is going to start using protein. Okay. And I'll explain all that here in just a second. Okay. So these are all things that you must know. I hope everybody understood that. Okay. So again, from 0 to 20 minutes, your body will primarily use carbs. From 20 to 60 minutes, your body will primarily use fat. And then from 60 minutes on, your body will use protein primarily as energy. Okay. In order for you to capitalize on the fat loss or the fat time, you need to make sure that you're staying between 55 and 75% of your max heart rate. Okay. All right. I hope that all makes sense. Okay. So those are just some facts that I wanted to throw out there first. Okay.